Hello, I'm Sumit Bose. Welcome to the Net Hero podcast. This podcast is for you if you're interested in business and reducing our carbon footprint. Our belief is that better business leads to a better planet. Who wouldn't want to make things that have less impact on our society? It's a podcast for people who are inventors, academics, people working in the energy sector, or from any different field that believe that they can do something better to make the products and services we use every day less harmful. Now, we've been running for about 3 years and it's been very successful with about 36,000 downloads and plenty more, massive engagement. But this show now needs a sponsor. We've done it editorially for all these years, but we need your help. So we know you've got a loyal audience out there. If you'd like to get involved and sponsor the show, then email me on the email just below on your screen. And we'd like to see if you're the right fit for us and that you've got the same vision we have. Now, on to this week's episode. Heating. Oh, yes, I know. Heating has been something we've touched on many times on the podcast, but it's vital. With Labour in, they're sticking to the target of getting more and more heat pumps, 600,000 a year within 3 to 4 years. We're on about 50, 60,000 right now. So we're looking at 10 times. But are heat pumps the absolute solution? And how will they work? Maybe you've got, as I've got, a couple of radiators in my house with those funny little thermostats you stick on and you can adjust the room temperature. It's a fight in my house because my wife wants the house warmer, I want it colder, so we then have to go around and I have to turn things off. But in the world of heat pumps, how will that work? How will we have smart thermostats? And how will this heat pump rollout take us to that level of cutting carbon? Well, that's what I'm going to discuss today with our guest, Ian Rose, from a company called Passiv. Ian, hello.
Hi, Sumit. Lovely to be here.
Lovely to be here. And also, this is great. We just had a little chat and a laugh beforehand. I've never met someone with a PhD in interdisciplinary mathematics. So I feel honored, Ian. It's great. Heating. Okay. So I know you've been in the industry quite a while. Just give us a quick 30 seconds, although most of our viewers and listeners will know, but what exactly is a heat pump? And there are two types. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So a heat pump is operating a bit like a fridge in reverse. So it is using a compressed gas to take heat from outside and move that heat internally. And through the phase change of that liquid/gas that's pushing around that system, it is delivering you more heat than the power that it's using to shift that heat from one place to another. So you can get that heat recovered from air, and that's an air source heat pump, or you can recover the heat from the ground with a ground source heat pump, or indeed water with a water source heat pump. Wherever you can find a bit of heat, you can recover that. The good thing about something like a ground source heat pump is temperatures are far more stable underground than they are in the air.
Yep.
So when it's really cold outside, the ground is a better place to go and find heat to recover than the air in terms of system efficiency.
One of the things I always want to know is if you get a heat pump, and say what I've got now is a combi gas boiler.
Yeah.
All the radiators have water going through. Does the heat pump then pump water around, warmed water, or does it have to have a new system of delivery using underfloor networks or whatever it is?
Yeah. So your radiators absolutely can be used by a heat pump.
Right.
You'll often hear that you need to put bigger radiators in. The reason for that is your heat pump loves to operate at a low flow temperature. So as if you try and push the flow temperature in your radiators higher, the heat pump has got a bigger delta T, so a bigger difference between the external air and the internal air.
Right.
And it makes it less efficient. That temperature gradient makes it less efficient. One way of counteracting that is if you had a huge set of radiators in your home, you can get a lot of heat out at a low flow temperature because you've got a lot of surface area. So that's why underfloor heating is great. Big surface area, get the heat in at a low flow temperature. So you can do it with your radiators, but it might not be as efficient as it could be.
Right. And so the main thing is, and this is, I suppose, where the science of kind of what people talk about, you should be able to use less energy to
Yeah,
heat your home because
yeah,
the temperature of the liquid that's going through your radiators is
yeah,
lower than a standard boiler, which is around about 55 degrees, I think, is most of them go
yeah,
operate at. So
yeah,
is that the basic crux of it?
yeah. So you're because it's renewable heat, you're getting heat for free. So that the with a gas boiler, you're extracting heat by burning a fossil fuel,
Yeah,
which is the best you could ever get. And I suspect you can't physically get there is 100% efficient. You can't get beyond 100%. So
right,
your boiler will be at 90 odd percent efficient.
correct.
Um, with a heat pump, you can get beyond 100%. Because of this phase change, just like your fridge, you're actually exploiting that property of the refrigerant to create renewable heat that you haven't had to put energy in to get energy out. So fantastic. So you can operate a heat pump and get 400% efficiency. So for
Wow.
every bit of energy you've put in, you've got 4 bits of heat out.
And what is the temperature that these can work in? Because this is the other thing,
Yeah,
as saying off air, the people are different, right? In
yeah,
houses, families, there's always a fight. My dad was always turn off the heating. My mum was
yeah,
always
yeah, yeah,
turn it. So, and this happens everywhere.
yeah.
So can you get, which I think the Energy Saving Trust say you should try and maintain your house at winter sort of between 18 and sort of 21 degrees, right? And obviously a bit more if they're elderly people living in the house. So can heat pumps do that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no reason why a well-installed heat pump can't get you to whatever temperature you would like to have in your home,
Right.
regardless of the external temperature. So, heat pumps will operate down to minus 25 outside,
Hmm.
and they will still heat your home. And if you want to have a temperature of 24 degrees, 25 degrees, no reason why a heat pump can't do that for you. Again, it's about the whole system design. So that means getting the right power in the heat pump. It means understanding how thermally efficient your building is. And it means designing your radiator system, if that's what you've got, to be able to get that heat in at a sufficient rate to get you to your desired set point temperature.
Thank you for explaining all that. Let's talk about what you guys are doing. So,
Yeah,
I said at the beginning, I've got a couple of those little
yeah,
funny knobs that you can turn on and turn off individual radiators.
yeah, 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 yeah.
The way that things are going, new house building is
Yeah,
generally ditching radiators because a
yeah,
friend of
no, no.
mine's in the construction industry and it's
Yeah,
all underfloor heating. All
yeah,
right. Now, how do we get these heat pumps to adjust the temperature? Because obviously, this is the main thing. Say you're not using the top floor or you're not using a room in your house and you're using other areas, the kitchen is generally the one that people use more. Can these be controlled individually? And what are you doing with your technology to try and make this? Because you've created something, I'm going to use the word smart thermostat, but
yeah, yeah.
can you explain what it does and how will it work with a heat pump?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if you take your new build home with your, underfloor heating probably downstairs and building regulations say you have to have 2 zones now. So you'll have a different zone for those floors. And heat pump works really nicely in that setup. So you've got your underfloor system gently heating downstairs for you. Your radiators will be the same upstairs. It is a different regime to the regime that you would have had if you put a gas boiler in there. So we've all grown up with gas boilers and we're used to
Yep,
having really responsive systems.
absolutely. Yeah. You're cold, you turn it on. Boom.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of people in the country that still will control their heating as an on-off. I have
Yes,
it off unless I want it on. If I
correct.
come in on a cold day, oh, it's chilly, I'll put a jumper on and I'll turn the heating on.
Correct.
Now, that's a disaster with a heat pump.
Yeah, that's it,
That's
isn't
a
it? This is like
disaster
the
with a
EV
heat.
thing. It's a different way of living, isn't it?
It is a different way of living. And this is what people need to wrap their head around, which is if you were to do that, you come into your house, it's cold, you turn the heat pump on, the heat pump will say, right, I need to get your house up by 4 degrees.
It's going to
That's
take me 4.5 days.
It'll take me a long time, but I'm going to try my best. I'm
Right.
going to the hottest low temperature that I can building. And that's going to cost you an arm and a leg because that benefit that I talked about,
Boom.
that efficiency gain, starts to get destroyed. It starts to act like an electric heater in your kettle,
Gotcha.
i.e., more like a one-to-one if you're not careful, of energy in, heat out, because the flow temperatures are high. And the counterintuitive thing is if the heating system had known 3 hours before you got home, well, actually, he's going to want it at 20 degrees.
Yeah.
It would have done, it would have been on for 3 hours longer,
Right.
running at a low flow temperature, gradually heating your home up. You'd have walked through the door and gone, oh, this heat pump's great, it's lovely and warm. And it would have cost you less money than if you turn it
This
on.
is so interesting because this is one of the big arguments people say, I get massive bills. It's because we're not using them the way that they're designed. And I think that's a lack of education from the heat pump industry for sure. Because I've
Yeah,
heard so many consumers say that. Because we're
yeah,
used to, that it's not anyone's fault, but that's the way I've been,
absolutely.
you save money by turning off the boiler, you don't turn it on, and then you suddenly cold snap, you turn it on. So
Yeah,
are
yeah,
you
yeah.
saying if you have a heat pump, you kind of have to have it on all the time? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? So a great way to operate a heat pump is put it on, leave it on, and let it run steadily 24 hours, and that'll be pretty decent performance. Of course, there is opportunity, right? Okay, so but I'm out at work at night,
Correct.
or I'm out during the day. I don't want it on at night when I'm asleep. Can I get some benefit from allowing the temperature to degrade slightly and then slowly bringing it back up? And the answer is yes, you can. That will save you some money. But that's not a thing that a human should be expected to calculate. When do I turn it on? What's the flow temperature? And so the answer to your question about, well, what does our thermostat do? Our thermostat is learning about your building. So,
Right.
so we use some smart algorithms to understand how your building heats up and cools down. So that when you say, "Oh, I'm going to come back home at 6 p.m. and I'd like the home to be 19 degrees," we go,
Yep.
right, okay, we know when you're going to come back. We know if I put my, 30-degree flow temperature in, so that's a beautiful flow temperature for efficient operation. It's going to take me 3 hours to get your building to your set point. So I know when to bring it on. And I can refine that because I can also get a weather feed and say, I can also see there's a cold snap coming.
Brilliant.
The temperature is going to degrade because
Yeah.
we're heading into the evening. So actually, what would have been 3 hours is now 3.5 hours because of that external temperature declining. So you can factor all of those things in order to give you your comfort. And then I guess the thing that we do above and beyond that is great. We've made the system efficient and we've delivered you comfort. But of course, the other thing you really care about is it doesn't cost you any more than it has to cost you, right?
Too right.
And we're moving into this low carbon world where, as we're already seeing, energy pricing is going to get more complicated. There are more energy suppliers now doing a EV charging
Yes.
tariff,
Dynamic pricing. Absolutely.
dynamic
Yeah.
pricing,
Yep.
heat pump tariffs are starting to come out. So, okay, so there might be some periods where it's cheaper to use your heat pump than not. So then you've got to factor in when do you want heat? How's the building respond to heat? What's the price of heat? What's the weather doing? This is getting quite complicated for
It's
the guy.
too much for
Yeah,
my small
for the
brain.
guy that's used to walking in, whacking up the thermostat,
Correct.
going, "Oh, who cares about that stuff? Because I'm lovely and warm." So our product, our thermostat, is doing all of that calculation for you. So if you've got time differential tariff, it factors that in. If you've got, you're coming in at 6 and we know between up to 5 o'clock we can get low cost heat.
Yes.
Maybe what we do is we put a bit of extra heat into your building before 5. We don't have it on between 5 and 6. So it's cheaper to put that.
But I won't know the difference because my temperature will be the right temperature I want.
When you walk through the door, the temperature's right. And we've delivered that temperature at the lowest cost to you. So
Where does that now?
that's
I
our
love it.
job.
I think it's very clever kit, and I know it's just we'll talk about when it's coming to market fully. But a couple of quick questions.
Yeah,
Where'd you stick it? Right, I told you that earlier. I said my
yeah,
one, the radiator, turn it on.
yeah.
Does it go on the heat pump? Does it go in
So
the room?
yeah, yeah,
How
yeah.
many do you need in your
So
house? How does it work?
okay. So what's in the box? So when you open the box, there are three things really. There's there's a little computer and a comms hub. So something that's going to get our system connected to the internet, and something that's going to that's got that learning algorithm sat on it. There's a programmer. There's a thing where you can set your schedule, and this is really important. This is a new feature in the new product. We used to be an online only solution. So get online, get your app, wonderful. That works for a lot of the people a lot of the time, but it
People
does
like
not work.
buttons, mate. People like buttons. I'm
It
used to
does
my
not work.
thermostat.
Absolutely. So you can do everything in an offline world
Right.
exactly like you would for your gas boiler, and that's really important. And we also give you a thermostat, really nice, clean thermostat on the wall. You can control it up and down as you would. And what we've tried to do is bridge the gap. You mentioned earlier about trying to educate people. This is a
Yes,
different world,
it is.
and educating people is a challenge, not least because most people they don't want to go on a course to figure out how to control their heating. They just want it to work. And
Oh,
that's
tell
the
me about
problem
it.
we're trying to solve, right? You set your heating up like you did with your gas boiler. It's going to do different things because it would be mad to act like a gas boiler.
Of course.
But
But the
you're
end result will be the same.
exactly. You'll
Yeah.
get what you want when you want it. Actually, you'll be more comfortable than you would have been with a gas boiler because with a gas boiler, you have the challenge of high flow temperature. You get all this radiant heat from the radiators. That feels hot. Then the gas boiler kicks off. The temperature doesn't degrade much. The radiators start to cool down. You think, oh, it feels. And then of course, what do you do? People tend to turn their setting up. And whereas if it was constant 20 degrees, they've turned it up to 21 because of the hysteresis. They feel cold when the radiators cool down. So actually, we know also it can be cheaper just because of the way the heat's delivered, because you can live at a lower set point.
Would you need two in a house then? One for one floor, one for the other?
So it's a single program, a single hub, and you can have one or two thermostats,
Right.
wired or a wireless thermostat that will talk to the programmer, deliver the information on the in-home temperature, and then we'll optimize against that.
How far from market is this product?
So we launched it last month at the Installer Show. We've got a whole range of organisations that are now in our early adopter program. So those are new house builders, social landlords, national installers, installing in a whole wide range of properties that we are going through a few hundred installations and commissioning, and we'll get user feedback. Um, you know, so by October, we'll be generally available for sale. And we'll have got comfort that the product is as robust and solid as we believe it to be. It's currently installed with some of our employees. So, we've had it operating.
Have you got one?
Do you know what? I got myself a biomass boiler
Ah,
under the RHI 8 years ago. So I've got a whacking great big investment in biomass, and it does not work with biomass. So I'm ashamed to say I do not have one.
just quickly, you claim, and I'm sure obviously you'll have to verify this,
Yeah.
but you think that this thermostat can save about a third on people's bills, correct?
Yeah, correct. And we commissioned the Energy Saving Trust to do some independent research on the efficiency that we can deliver. So I talked about that flow temperature benefit. If you haven't got our thermostat there, then the temperature is determined at the point of installation. So
Ah,
the flow temperature is based on the thermal evaluation of the building. So when the guy comes and does the survey of your home, and they look at your windows and look at your walls and the insulation levels, they do a calculation of heat loss. Unfortunately, those heat loss calculations are a vague approximation of what might happen in reality. They use that calculation then, well, they should use it to set a heat curve. So they say, well, if the external temperature is 5 degrees, 0 degrees, -5, given the rate of heat loss in this building, this
this
is
is
the
the
flow
temperature we need to have it. Yeah, got it.
So they set that curve. Although the data suggests about a third of installations haven't had a curve set. They've just got a fixed flow temperature, which is a disaster, right? That's a disaster, no good for
And
anybody.
all of this is
in the heat pump.
contributing to the kind of bad press around heat
Yeah,
pumps,
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
So you get that heat curve right, you can get great performance from your heat pump. And there's some really good installers out there that are getting great outcomes from heat pumps. But it's a difficult process. It's difficult to get the measurements right because it's an approximation. And what our system's doing is it's actually learning it in situ for that specific building, and it's making minute by minute adjustments based on the evidenced performance of the building. Anyway, so we gave all of that data to the Energy Saving Trust, and they said we are improving the efficiency of the heat pump by, on average, 17%. So that equates to, when you do the maths, that equates to about a 10% bill saving.
Right.
So, that's just from getting your flow temperature right. And then there's upsides around using your time of use tariff. And if you've got a heat pump, you should get onto a time of use tariff because you'll save money. And we'll automate all of that for you. So there's no having to worry about how to do it. If you've got some solar PV on your roof, you should be using that when it's available to do your hot water.
Yep.
Through the summer, and in the shoulder seasons to do a bit of heating as well.
Yep.
So that you maximize the use of that. And the other thing that we do is you can choose to enroll in demand side response programs. So this is offering up some flexibility. So your energy supplier says, use the energy when it's cheap. And then we overlay that and say, well, the network has got a problem at this point in time, and they will pay us some money to shift your load. And we will pass that money back to the consumer, and we will pay them for the pleasure of allowing their flexibility to support the grid. And again, all of that is automated, so the consumer won't notice any difference. So if if we're in the winter and there's a whole load of extra demand come on the grid, and they say, between 5 and 7, we've got a turn down event.
Yeah,
we're going to pay you some money for that. What we will do is we will heat the fabric of the building just enough so that when
between 5 and 7, I won't feel the difference.
You won't notice. So we might get you half a degree above your set point.
Yeah, gotcha.
And by the end of that 2 hours, you'll be half a degree below, and then we'll gradually bring you back up, maintaining efficiency, and you won't notice. The first thing you'll know is the money will hit your account, and you'll think, I don't know why they're paying me because I didn't notice anything, but
because I've been a good boy.
Exactly.
A bit of rapid fire question time, right? Yeah. Do they work with both your thermostats? Will they work with ground source and air source?
Absolutely, they will.
Fine.
Yes.
Are they available commercially, or is it just a domestic product at present?
It's domestic only.
Right. What is the cost of it for the consumer? Or is that picked up by the person who installs and they pass it on to you?
So, at the moment, we will sell to the installer and they will sell it as part of their package. Our RRP, £210 for a single zone, £240 for a 2-zone.
What do you think is the kind of potential for this thermostat? Because, as I said right at the beginning, the government wants to get to the previous government's total of 600,000. I think you said earlier it's about 70,000 at present. 600,000 a year is a lot from where we are now within 3.5 years.
Yeah. So we make it, some of the challenges that we have to overcome. First of all, we have to make heat pumps cheaper than gas boilers to run. Well, a well-installed heat pump, a well-controlled heat pump, will do that for you already today. Get on a good tariff and it's even better. Of course, the challenge is the operational savings to the consumer don't overcome the capex cost.
Of course. Of course.
Nice big subsidy out there, and costs are coming down. So we're not in a too bad a place on that front. Then we've got to overcome the consumer challenge in that journey from I'm used to a gas boiler, and that can be a challenge. And it's organisations like ours are helping the consumer on that journey to make it easy to make that transition. As we start to get towards greater volume, we start to see new challenges around the energy system and the networks being able to accommodate all of these things on the grid. And of course, the easy homes will start, the easy homes will be the early adopters. There's a lot of homes, the majority of homes in the UK have got, like you've got a combi gas boiler. That's a much more difficult transition.
It is, yeah. Especially mine's quite new. It's only 3 years old when I bought the place. So, for me to outlay now is typically, and you mentioned something which was interesting. You talked about before we start, there could be a hybrid solution. So before
Yes.
we end,
Yeah.
what is a hybrid solution and what could it be for someone
So,
like me?
yeah. Okay. So you've got a combi boiler. You want to decarbonize
I
your.
do.
Someone comes along and says, "Well, have a heat pump. It's great. You have this outdoor unit," and you go, "Yeah, I can deal with that. We've got to put this cylinder somewhere." And you say to your wife, "Right, we need to give up a bit of a bedroom, or find some space to have an area covered."
It's not going to happen.
They're not going to happen, right?
Right.
So what's your solution? And this is a high percentage, over 50% of UK homes are in this situation. What's the solution? That is a really tough nut to crack. That's to put a real brake on heat decarbonisation. Well, we did the biggest hybrid trial in the UK that actually we started in 2016, so a good number of years ago, where we took homes with combi boilers,
Yeah.
just like your situation, and we installed a heat pump and we plumbed it into the existing system with the existing radiators. And we put some smart controls on that home that said, right, okay, when we can, we're going to operate the heat pump. We're going to provision all the heating with the boiler because you haven't got a hot water tank. And in the coldest depths of winter, if we think the heat pump can't deliver the heat because your radiators aren't big enough, thermal, whatever, we may fall back onto the boiler. We did that trial the year of the beast from the east. So we had a whole load of homes around the country, and temperatures got down to -6, -7. And despite the fact that we stuck a 5 kilowatt, despite the size, whatever the size of the home, we put a 5 kilowatt heat pump in. We were able to deliver 80% of all of the space heating from the heat pump, despite the beast from the east, despite the fact that we were in things like we had a house in Wales that was a converted cowshed. It had solid stone walls without insulation. It had single glazed windows. It had old cast iron style radiators. But by doing the thing that I described earlier, a slow, steady flow temperature into that building, even down at -6, -7, there was still opportunity to use the heat pump to get some background heat in, and the boiler would kick in to top it up with that high flow temperature. The Committee on Climate Change said we should have 6 million of these things. And why did they say that? Security of supply. So if you've got a load of hybrids on the system, and we've got a wind-powered generation, and we get a low pressure system on the UK, and the wind's not blowing, and everyone wants to turn their heat pump on, what are you going to do? Well, you can import power from Europe if you've got enough interconnector. But if you've got hybrid, and on previous podcasts, you've talked about the wonderful storage capability of gas.
Yeah.
Use that storage capability of gas to fall back to maintain security of supply. Hybrids are a brilliant answer. They're a brilliant answer to the government hitting their 2028 target of 600,000. They're a brilliant answer for you in terms of what can you do to decarbonise 8% of your heat demand.
I'm sold. Done. I'll be talking to you afterwards. All right. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure, Ian. I think what you're doing there at Passive sounds really interesting. Check out the website. Is it just called passive.com?
Yeah, passivuk.com.
Passivuk.com. Have a look at it. Thank you very much for your time.
Great.
Let me know what you think about this, because this solution of these new thermostats to work with heat pumps sounds very interesting. Get in touch with us. Use nethero@futurenetzero.com or on social media and tell us what you think about it. Ian, thank you very much for your time. I'll see you all again on the next episode of the Net Hero podcast.
You've just heard the Net Hero podcast from futurenetzero.com. Join us as we help you find ways to cut your carbon footprint as we head towards net zero. Subscribe and follow us on social media. futurenetzero.com. Better business, better planet.